Hey nerds, and welcome to CW's Flash, Theories, and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd. So this week we had the season finale for Season 2 of The Flash, and we got a lot of stuff answered, and a lot of great things just happened. And we got some clear direction for what Season 3 will have, and I also have some theories on how that will play out along with what they've been doing. So first, we did finally learn who the man in the Iron Mask is. And it is Jay Garrick, who we thought, but not the Jay Garrick that we did think. Jay Garrick from Earth 3, who looked exactly like Barry's dad, which we all kind of expected this to be the case, but I think that Earth 3 twist was a nice thing in there, which played into Zoom's ultimate plan, was, you know, how he figured out there were multiple Earths and things like that. Now, does this mean this is the last we've seen of Jay Garrick, Barry's dad's doppelganger? I don't think so. I think they like bringing that actor back in, and he's a great actor, so it'd be a shame if he was gone for good. I do think it'll be a while before we see him, though. And I think that will tie into what I think the second half of Season 3 will be. So, next, Wally's response to learning that Barry is the Flash. I was worried that they were going to do this kind of whole, how could you guys not tell me? Similar to what Iris went through. Why didn't you guys tell me? Why didn't you think I could handle this? Why would you keep the truth from me? But the way they actually handled it, I thought was very, very good, very tasteful. And I'm glad they let Wally be mature enough to understand, but also to sympathize with Barry and what he's doing and how much he's done for the city. I think it was a great move by the writers to go in that direction. So I really appreciated how they handled Wally coming to terms and learning the truth of Barry. I thought that was a great time. Not that it was an appropriate time for him to lash out anyways, but you know, it could have gone the other way, and I'm glad they didn't. We also learned the fate of Zoom this week. In the final battle, Barry uses a time remnant to summon the time wraiths. And his gamble was that his offense was much smaller than what Zoom's was, and that they would jump at the chance to take him. And when they do, there's some speculation that this isn't the last we've seen of Zoom, but that actually he's going to be turning into the Black Flash. And he's a character from the comics. I'll get into him more a little later. I feel like I'm going to be doing a kind of in-depth on some of who these kind of characters are that have been referenced or that could possibly come into play, but Black Flash is in the comic, and you can see that there's a definite parallel between the image that we see in the comics and what we see Zoom is happening to Zoom from the Time Wraiths. Only time will tell. I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon, though. It's not going to be like with Eobard Thawne, where he's kind of mixed up in the time stream and it's all crazy, so I don't think we're going to see him as much as we've been seeing Eobard Thawne pop up now and then. Now, Zoom's plan was clearly a play on the whole kind of crisis on Infinite Earths kind of thing, and that was a multiverse crisis, and that if Zoom's plan succeeded, it would have wiped out everything except for Earth Prime, or what they were referring to as Earth 1, or I think he even calls it Earth 0 at one point. Well, the crisis is averted. There's going to be no crisis on Infinite Earths next season. But that doesn't mean we've heard the last of this storyline, and I'll come back to it in a little bit. But the crisis was averted, obviously. Now, end of the episode, Barry he's empty, he's hollow, like he said, and he is at the bottom, and he thinks he deserves something. He needs to fill this hole, so he goes back in time and saves his mom, even though a future Barry told past Barry not to, which, you know, time travel, guys. But he saves his mom, and this is the catalyst, this is the event in the Flashpoint series and in the Flashpoint movie that leads to that alternate timeline. So, Season 3, we will be having some sort of version of the Flashpoint Paradox. Now, it's not going to be an entire season. We are not going to get 22, 23 episodes of this Flashpoint Paradox, because it would be really difficult to merge that with everything that's going on, with the Legends of Tomorrow, with Arrow, with whatever's going to happen with Supergirl. What I think is going to happen is we're going to get 3 episodes. Imagine kind of a Star Wars trilogy. You're going to have the first episode where you've got Barry, you know, he's got his mom, maybe he's got his dad, we don't know, but he thinks things are good, but then he's starting to learn he doesn't have the Speed Force. Although I think they're just going to leave that with him, or it's hard to say. Since he's already gone through losing it, it would be strange to have him start off with no Speed Force right away, but I could see him having to do that because he's going to have to make some sacrifices. So the first episode, everything looks great, everything feels great, but Iris is not in his life in the way he wants. The Speed Force is probably not going to be in his life in the way he wants. And that's what the second episode is going to be. He's going to see that this world is actually a much worse place because of the ripple effect. When he broke the time barrier and set this straight, it created a ripple that has reverberated and changed all of history, not just bringing the one life back to life or the lives immediately around him, but everything. And I think he's going to see that the world is actually a much darker place. Whether we're going to see anyone from Arrow pop up in this is hard to say because Stephen Amell has come on record and said this isn't going to affect the Arrow show pretty much in the least. And then so the third episode, it's going to be him deciding he has to set things right. He needs to go back in time and stop himself. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see him sacrificing everything again. So he will have lost his mom for the second, possibly third time, as far as he's concerned, because of time travel. But he also is going to have to sacrifice what he thought was a happy life. This is going to be, there's a lot of parallels here to the Supergirl episode For the Girl Who Had Everything, where she's trapped with the I believe they call it the Black Death. It's that rose that puts you in a fantasy of your perfect world. And Barry's going to have to give that up, and he's going to have to kind of go through a trial in order to prove he's worthy of that and go back in time and stop himself. Now, what does that mean for the second half of the season? Well, I think after that, there's going to be some fallout, some repercussions. Things are going to be a little different. Maybe things aren't going to be so good with him and Iris at that point. We don't know. Maybe this means characters who are dead or we thought are dead are going to be back to life. It's really hard to say because when you change things in this way, I mean, this is what happened with the Flashpoint Paradox and the New 52. Things were back to normal, except they weren't. They were different. It was a different timeline. And Barry was the only one who knew, and in the comics, he slowly forgets the old world. But the second half of the season, I think they are going to actually do the Crisis storyline. Why do I think this? Look at the history of the show. Season 1, they tease Flashpoint, but then they shy away from it, giving everyone a whole season to kind of figure out what Flashpoint was, to learn about it, so that when Season 3 starts, Flashpoint Paradox. Now, we've learned about Crisis, and people have been talking about the Crisis on Infinite Earths, but they shy away from it. They avert it. They avoid it. But now we know that Supergirl is on CW, and that eventually they are going to merge her into the common universe. It's not happening right away. What better way than Crisis on Infinite Earths? A storyline where we're going to have the entire multiverse in peril, possibly one or more dimensions getting destroyed. It's a very smart way to bring Supergirl and all of her cast and all those characters into the main Arrow universe without just saying, oh, hey, turns out we were wrong and they were here the entire time, because that would come off as pretty weak, and I don't think people would like that. But we know there is a 4-part crossover, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, Flash, and Arrow. And what other event could be big enough to justify that kind of a large crossover? So that's what I think is happening. What are you guys looking for in Season 3? What did you love about Season 2? What was your favorite parts? And what villains do you think you would like to see Barry face as he's trying to save the world in Season 3? Until next season, guys, have a good hiatus and be on the lookout for any videos I might do talking about these kind of offshoot characters like Black Flash and characters like that. But until then, I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been Flash, Theories, and Conspiracies.